If God is the creator and the supreme being of all, it would mean he is omnipotent. This means he could create a massive rock which cannot be lifted by anyone in this entire universe. But stating that would mean God himself is included in the ones who cannot lift it. Let's tweak a perspective. If God lifts the mighty rock, that would instantly challenge his omnipotence, which means that lifting the rock would mean that God cannot create one. Before I tell you more about this situation, let's hear another story. This time, I'll tell you a story of an evil grandson. Yeah, weirdly enough, he hates his grandfather for some unknown reason, and let's assume that he has a time machine and he goes back in time, kills his grandfather when he was a child. But this would contradict the entire situation. Because if his grandfather is killed, his father isn't born, which then means that the grandson isn't born, which ultimately implements that he couldn't go back in time to kill his grandfather. What's even absurd yet logical is that if the grandson isn't born, there's no murder of the grandfather in the first place. This contradicting situation is called Einstein's famous grandfather paradox. These situations with outcomes which are interlinked and contradicting are called paradoxes. Today we'd be talking about this time paradox. There are different theories related to time and being, and I'll draw my conclusions and thoughts by bringing another aspect into action, which is the functioning of dimensions. And to make you understand how dimensions work, we have to bring in math. I'll try keeping it as easy as possible. We've all learned about quadrants, and I hope everybody remembers the x and y axis graphs which we used to draw in school. Okay, I seriously myself don't know what they were used for and like what is their practical implementation, but let's leave it and let's say that this flat space, the quadrants, okay, let's say that it itself is a two-dimensional world, and we stand in our world, a three-dimensional world. Our world is a three-dimensional world, and the world in the piece of paper is a two-dimensional world. Now, if we were for some reason to shoot a spherical bullet into the 2D world, a person in the 3D world would see a sphere. He would see a sphere bullet, whereas a person in the 2D world would only be able to see a dot. This goes to show how different worlds would behave. Similarly, parallel universes function unlike each other. The theory of parallel universes suggests a lot of debated principles, so we're not going to discuss that. So, coming back to the case of the grandfather, I can pose two situations which may conclude this paradox. One being drawn from the scientific methodology and one which is a manual alternative. Firstly, let's look at the manual alternative. Let's say the father possesses the ability to travel to his future too, where he is married. So now two situations emerge. One being the grandson traveling in time to kill his grandfather, and secondly, the father traveling in time to conceive his son with his wife. This ends in a mind-bending solution to a paradox. The end outcome of this result is the grandfather killed and the father never being born. Yet the grandson is born because his father conceived his child in the future. Before his existence could be wiped out, he went into the future and he conceived his child. But that is just one way to look at things. The alternative solution has something different to say. According to the quantum superposition theory, electrons show varied behavior. This has been proved through the double slit experiment. You can read about it on Google, and it's a very vast explanation, so we're not diving deeper into that. In a nutshell, when the grandson goes back in time, he passes through a diversion which takes him to an alternate universe. So whatever be his actions, he is unable to affect his original timeline. Contradictions are to both sides, but the second solution is backed by science. Time is fascinating yet dreadful. On someday, humanity will be able to break this diversion and travel to multiverses. The thing I could get closest to is all laid out before you in this episode. So, the existence of time travel stands at the unlocking of certain technology which can allow us to breach this division between two different universes. Who knows, we might stand next to another version of ourselves tomorrow. So, guys, that was episode 2 of DRISHTIKON, and this is Kunal Dikshit signing out for the day. Thank you, everyone.